welcome. We're talking about insights today, living on board with dogs, big dogs. We got a lot of questions from you guys about handling and everything, and that's why we want to give some experience or share our experience about 6 years sailing and living on board with 2 big dogs, and hopefully you get all answers what you were looking for, and maybe we also touch some points that were not mentioned on other videos or what's already around. Some things one doesn't expect.
Marley? Up. Basco? One of the first things that comes up in mind when I remember all the time with the dogs is the most important is training. It's not like you gotta teach the dog certain skills, it's more like training to become a team, to be a real buddy team with your dog. Because when you go live aboard with a dog, that's a big challenge, not just for humans or for people. It is a much bigger challenge for a dog because he doesn't know anything. You totally, fully have to trust you, and if you don't set up this before you go on board, you will have a hard time, I guess. It depends on the dog, it depends on the situation. Of course, it's all different, so we don't want to be educational. We just want to give some thoughts on the way, what we experienced, and we didn't thought about that maybe that much before as we should. It is important that the dog gets along with every situation, with meeting different people, with meeting different grounds, walk on, different environments, and he's got to follow the rules.
It needs a lot of training, especially if a dog has to walk over a pier. So not every pier is like a closed floor. Some have like holes inside, some are metal piers that they see through, they see the water, what scares them, so that's stuff you should, or the dog should be trained before you should think about.
Then one more thing also, talking about walking grounds, if you're especially cruising the tropics, you gotta keep in mind that during the day the ground becomes very hot. So the sand can be hot, the stones or whatever is dark surface, it usually gets very, very hot, and maybe you don't notice because you have shoes, but the dog will notice it on its paws. So we fix that. We go early in the morning hours or late in the evening. We bring them on shore and walk them as long as the ground is still on a comfortable temperature.
So the dogs need to be flexible to also work out with other kind of transportation, like other boats, fisher boats like we're doing right now, as we lost our dinghy. And in the end even may use a kayak with you or just go for a swim.
Talking about swimming, there's another thing to mention. It is very, very important that you have a sufficient supply on fresh water to shower the dog, to totally rinse the dog from the salt water. The first is like the salt water itself, it will probably dry the skin of the dog, so you will have skin issues maybe. And much more important is like, as no scientist, but as far I know, is the dog will have heat problems. So when there is salt water remaining, the salt crystals they remain in the fur and make it even more. I don't know how that works, but in the end, we've been warned like the dog will get trouble with heat. that's something to keep in mind, because even if you say, okay, yeah, you don't have just a little supply of water on board, you will pretty sure need much more with a dog.
Now, when you visit other countries, when you want to see places, you want to go on tours and discover an island or whatever, and you have to go somewhere, use a bus, use a taxi, or whatever, it's limited with a dog. Not every bus drivers mostly don't accept dogs on board because it's other people, they're afraid. Not everybody will come on board, so they will not take the dog. Maybe if you have a small dog in like a bag, but not with the big dogs. And the same with taxis, so you're kind of limited of experiences yourself, so you have to keep in mind you cannot just go and hike for 3 days because you cannot leave them on the boat and unattended. Somebody needs to feed them, they need to walk, they need care, and you cannot just take them everywhere with public transportation. So that's something to keep in mind as well, that you're kind of restricted in your experiences at one point.
It all depends what you want. If you say you're good with that, as we did, then okay. But you will see those situations where you just have to skip and take care for the dogs.
I remember the other day when we would have gotten a free flight in the Bahamas to Andros with a pilot we just got to know, because he was empty, the flight was empty, and he was like, yeah, I invite you to get a free flight. Join me and you just take care for your coming back. And we're like, even if we would know how to come back, we cannot leave the dogs back. And of course he would not take the dogs off the plane, so we had to skip that.
But of course, in the end, it's something like traveling with little children. In the end, they're just big babies.
Another point to think about is different countries, not just different regulations and check-in, what we also will talk about, but also different foods. So if your dog is sensitive to different brands of food or changing brands, keep in mind to store enough food, because next island might have complete other assortment of brands, or maybe just one, sometimes even hard to find dog food because they don't keep dogs as pets. They have stray dogs on the road and they get chicken bones, whatever they find. So sometimes it's hard. So make sure you inform yourself for the next countries you go to. For example, we use Noonside a lot. Also for check-in procedures to figure out what's the requirements of the next country where you go to, regarding to vaccinations, paperwork. Some countries require just a health certificate and proper vaccination paper, follow everything. Other countries you need to really call up front or send an email that you're coming, make an appointment, tell them when you're coming, where you plan to make an appointment, so the veterinarian will come, check the dog, see the dog for ticks and visible diseases. We'll check the paperwork and you'll get like a certificate. And every time you walk ashore, for example, like here in Dominica, you got to have the paper with you to show in case you get stopped.
In various countries, you cannot take the dogs ashore at all. No matter what paperwork you have, no matter how your vaccinations, everything is done, you can have the best stuff ready. Like Jamaica. Jamaica, there was like they didn't want to even have a look on any paper. It was just like, okay, you don't have permission to take the dogs on land, which keeps the dog for 2 or 3 weeks. So it depends how long you are stuck in that place. It keeps the dogs on land, on the boat, because you cannot risk it just to go and go for a little peek or whatever. It's usually never a good idea with a dog to go on land without paperwork. Talking about things you won't find on Noonside, there is like what you're doing if you're with a dog or with your pets on remote islands somewhere where there isn't a vet or anybody or access to medication and stuff like this. Everything can happen, and even if it's not a nice thought, but you may have to also think about what you're doing if it's necessary to put your dog asleep or something. So you cannot just say, okay, it's not going to happen, or what it might be happening, and then it's probably you, the one have to deal with it. So we don't know what is the recommended thing. That way, we had a shot on board for this case during the time when we were sailing Haiti and Honduras. I'm happy that we don't need it anymore in case now anything would be happen. Now we have access to a vet, but something to keep in mind. You maybe sail around areas where it's not happening. You want to be ready. Better we wish it's not gonna happen, but you want to be ready.
Yeah, it's anyway something to keep in mind, to have some kind of medication on the boat for the dog, like painkiller that is for pets that they can take without any harm, because you never know if you're sailing and he breaks his leg or even just pulls a muscle or whatever. It can be really painful for them as well.
We don't recommend that you give your dog any medication without talking to a proper vet. The best solution would be anyway, if you have in such moments, if you have a satellite connection or something to a proper vet on land that can give you instructions what to do. But even then you might need the one or the other medication or whatever. Yeah,
be prepared.
Be prepared.
like for humans as well. We take care to have painkillers and whatever medication on board, on stock, like for all of us, for crew, like for seasickness and whatever you might get. And
being prepared, yeah. Also dogs get also seasick.
Right.
I mean,
some of
the
them.
Basco here, definitely not. The more waves you get, the more comfortable he is. But our big boy here, when it gets rough, he will get seasick.
And talking about waves is also a good point. Something we didn't expect before when we thought about, what we're gonna do when we go in longer passages and be 4 or 5 days without access to land. They're gonna freak out because they don't get to walk that regular. No, the waves, the movement of the boats, the constant regulating to, how you say that, like equalizing, yeah, the constant equalizing of the body and the movement of the boat makes them so tired. Like 80% of the bigger passages, they're laying down asleep and are done. They're coming out to play once in a while when they get hungry, when it's time for food, but other than that, they're tired. They're sleeping.
One thing also to mention, it's one of the most asked question we got. Where do the dogs go for doing their business? And the very first you have to understand is, like, when we live on board of a boat, that doesn't say we live actually far out in the ocean. So we're not like every day out at sailing. The truth is, in the end, we're maybe like sailing 20% during the year, and the rest of the time we are anchored or somewhere near land. So that says we just walk the dogs as we would do when we live on the land. The only thing was different, you don't go with your dog out of the house and go to the forest or wherever you walk your dogs. When you live on a boat, you just go with a dog on a dinghy or get a ride or whatever, and then you go on land and do exactly the same as you would do on land. So there's not much of a difference, but of course there's the situations when you have to care for that on board, and there is also no real way to go, because every dog is different, every boat is different, situations are different. With our boat we have a very untypical catamaran, so we don't have these nets, these trampoline nets up front. We have wooden bars, and we just made a place there for the dogs to pee and do their business up front there. We started off with the first problem. The dogs were well trained and taught not doing their business in any sort of fence or human environment or house. So they pretty quickly, when they came on board, they got it, oh, that's a house, so I'm not allowed to do anything here. Which is basically okay and alright, that's exactly what they learned. So now they had to learn different, and we made the transportation that we bought a piece of
Torf.
torf. We bought a piece, Marley, very good. So we bought a piece of turf and took that with us when we walked the dogs and let them pee also on that, so it would take the smell. And so after a while they got adopted to that when we put that thing on the foredeck. So they realized, okay, something different, and we had a command word for it. So we teach them very early, like when they go for pee, when they go for doing it, in this moment when they take action, we say a word. We use Swiss German to do that, so we just say Gongoluege. But it works pretty good. So in this moment it kind of triggers them, and then they know, okay, I'm allowed to do now my business. It took about 2 weeks or something until they totally got into it and got adopted to it. So the piece of turf is a very good solution to actually get them to train and to make them understand which place they should use. But there is a big thing I want to mention also about turf. Turf is made out of plastic, small plastic pieces, and they're gonna degenerate in sun and saltwater environments. So in the end, what happened is, like, if you use that thing on a frequent basis, some put a chain on it or something and put it overboard, flush it, which is all a good idea. But every time you do that, you're gonna lose little plastic parts. And for fish and other animals down there, it looks like food. So they're actually just feeding plastic to the ocean. And so that's why we quickly stopped that. We made them just understand, okay, you don't need that thing, you can go on the wooden bars as it is, and we put a little chicken wire, something on it, so that they have still some stand, but I don't know if they would get adapted to it if we would not make the translation from the knowledge through this turf piece. But I would highly recommend not to use it as an end solution, and keep that in mind, that you just feed the plastic in the ocean. Honestly, I come back to you and let you know once I found this perfect solution, but until now we still don't have it. If you have it, please let us know down below in the comments.
A very good point to have dogs on board, in my opinion, is the perfect security system. I mean, for me, the 2 big black dogs as a woman walking ashore alone, for example, is the perfect security system, as most people are afraid of black big dogs. And also on the boat, if we're not there, they take care for everything. They protect the boat, so there's no issue with pirates. And yeah, even pirates offshore, I think they would think twice if they want to attack you or come closer, depending of weapons or whatever, but that's a completely other thing that we have no influence on. But
and also no experience, so we don't know actually how it would be. But we saw, it's like, you have these moments sometimes in shady areas where you see exactly there's people checking you out. So once they see there's a big Rottweiler on deck, they give up on any ideas they may have or may not. It's just like we never got in any trouble.
No. And what they're also good for is, remember, if you tie on docks in marinas, for example, or even just as a hurricane shelter in the mangroves, rats have the chance to climb on board. And with the dogs, the smell keeps them out already, and if one would do the approach, they would take care for, same as the cat takes care for flying critters coming in, like bugs and cockroaches and whatever. There's just no such thing like other harmful animals coming on board when you have dogs and cats on board. Not on ours. I can't tell if other cats are catching cockroaches and bugs or whatever. Others might just not be interested and be lazy. I don't know. Ours do so.
There's one more thing to mention also about the life jackets. We thought in the beginning it's a very good idea to have life jackets for the dogs. It turned out not actually being very doable solution, because they were not comfortable with the life jacket. No matter which one, they were just like, don't take that away from me. When we put them on life jackets, they were not safe or secure with their steps anymore. They were all just about the life jacket and what is this, and they didn't watch where they stepped on, and it turned out that it is actually more difficult, more dangerous if they wear all the time the life jackets than if they just can be themselves. So we just don't give them a chance to go overboard. When we are offshore, they're gonna stay inside with the catamaran. They have enough room to do so, and when they go out, they are always connected to us with a harness.
And also with the life jacket, it makes them wider than usual with all the straps and everything, and they might like get stuck on some areas, lines or whatever where they walk through. So it's even more, how you say that, dangerous. They hurt themselves or get stuck somewhere than without, I feel like.
So it's not that we say we don't recommend it. It's just like it didn't work out with our two boys. It might be different with other dogs, but with the two dogs here, we changed in the beginning. We took first we had life jackets for dogs, and that didn't work out at all. So then we used life jackets for children, and that was a little bit better, but still like not really something usable. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind if you want to go live aboard permanently with a dog. Honestly, if I would start over again, I would not do it again. I thought it's easier. I thought it's... I don't know, I'm happy with it as it is now, but if I would start over again, I would not do it again. But we still have nice times, we have awesome times. Basco, come here. Yeah, our grandpa, mamacita. Mamacita. This here is my grandpa. He's 12 years old now. He traveled more than 30 countries and has been in 3 different continents. So he came around pretty a lot. And there's another thing that also comes up. So right now he's still okay. He's still fit and he does his Basco things. But I can see that his mind is stronger than his body. So in the meantime, he gets a little weak with his paws, with his legs, with his hips. We can see also the eyes getting gray, and he probably don't hear that good anymore. We have the feeling like to sail ahead would be. It's also a challenge for a dog. It also. So
tiring for him.
It's tiring for him also, and right now we have the feeling he deserves to retire. So we are not on a circumnavigation which is limited to 2 years or something. It can take up to 30 years. This is our life, this is our journey, and the retirement of this dog belongs also to this journey somehow. He has been part of our life since 12 years. We got him in the very beginning, and we feel just now it's time to slow down. So that's why we're probably not going to sail too far or too much in the next couple of months. Just give him a little bit more time and to relax, take it easy.
Yeah, but that's something to keep in mind. The dog gets older way faster than you do, and you want to be prepared to not stress him out and still keep him because he relies on you. We would not think about giving him somebody else or giving him ashore to retirement. That's probably the worst you could do, like separate him from you. You're everything for the dog. He grew up with you and he's the one who trusts you most probably, and he will always follow you. So if you give him the time and love he deserves, all will be good.
Yeah, we love you too. We love all of you.
I hope we answered all your questions, and if there's still something open, comment down below. We'll try to answer that as well. And other than that, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, and we see you next time.